Resting up. All right, we're going to get to the draft profile here. And Jason, you couldn't have teed this up better, my friend. You just couldn't have teed this up better. Let's talk about running back replacements. So we're going to, and I, of course, for those who watch this show, you know that based on where I live and everything, there is a little bit of an affinity for me for the Pac-12 and the USC Trojans. I have tried not to talk about Trojan players here, but the reason I brought up this player is because, and why we're going to look at him, is because he did, I think, a little bit better at the combine than a lot of people think. And this is one of those things where this guy's a little older, transfer, kind of tried to maximize some exposure for him towards the end of his college career and get on a potential kind of a super team that ended up disappointing. But it is one of the running backs from USC, MarShawn Lloyd, that we're going to talk about here in just a second. We're going to pull up the film here in just a second. But John, what do you know about this kid just going into it? Were you going in a little blind to it, or what were you thinking when I told you that we were going to share this one for you?
I knew that he was from USC and that he transferred there and that we're going to talk about him.
Do you know where he transferred from?
I do not.
You don't?
I don't.
So Lloyd transferred from, if you can believe it, I told you I am, USC and true. There is another school that goes by USC or SC like this, and that it would be South Carolina. So we're going to pull this up in just a second here. It's going a little slow loading it up for you, but this kid, here's the thing with him, John. And just to give you a preview of what we're going to talk about, he's a guy that I didn't think, granted, of course, he was a player that, showed some things and had some breakaway plays and everything, but you kind of felt like maybe he was going to run. I don't want to say mediocre or pedestrian, but just kind of okay 40 time, and you were kind of wondering about the explosiveness. There are questions on what his ceiling is and all of that, but I think there's a lot to like with this guy, and his build is really interesting as well. You'll see that in just a second. I'm going to stop teasing it. I'm going to start pulling this up here so you can see what I'm talking about. He's not overly huge, but he definitely packs a punch, and he's a guy that I think the Bengals would be highly interested in, or potentially interested in. There are some questions, and I'm going to share this with you right here. MarShawn Lloyd, and we'll go through some clips. We'll go through some things as we usually do with these types of players. But again, he went to South Carolina and he went to USC, transferred to USC along with that flood of all the talent that they came with Caleb Williams and all those players. Obviously never materialized the way that the Trojans envisioned in terms of national championships, or even really, especially last year. Wow, kind of a disaster. But I like this guy's running. So you see 5'9", packs a punch, 220, 5'9", 220. He is 23. So, a little older, and that comes with the transfer situation. 4.46 in the 40 from the combine, a 1.56 10-yard split, John, 36-inch vertical, 9 feet, 10 inches on the broad, and some nice strength, 25 reps logged at the combine on the bench press. So deceptive speed, pretty decent strength, explosiveness, etc. We'll show the RAS in just a second here as well. Not a ton of touches because it was kind of by committee. 116 rushes, 820 yards. Though look at the average yards per carry, 7.1. There is a caveat to that. We'll show you in just a second. Just 13 catches, 232 receiving yards, though. 9 touchdowns. All of them were on the ground this last year, that is. So, there's not a lot of, so even though there's the age, there's not a high volume here, and that kind of plays throughout his entire college career. But there's a lot of stuff on film that's fun here. I do have some hesitancy here. A lot of his plays, of course, came against defenses that may or may not have been the strongest in the Pac-12, but they were playing the pass with Caleb Williams, right? And so here you go. And a lot of stuff to the outside, gets through some contact, gets you through there. And then, of course, here, nice one cut and kind of go, right? And then another nice cut. And this is one of the themes I've seen with him as he gets to the open field. As the guys try and tackle him, they're trying to chase him down. They kind of just slide off his back, and that comes with his build of the big, kind of the broad shoulders. You'll see him here. Here's a fun one from South Carolina. Woo! That one's fun. I like that one a lot. And so here he is again, kind of cutting it back and getting into the end zone. That was earlier in his career, obviously a lot. But look at this. A lot of this stuff is designed to go just kind of outside. My qualm with it is a lot of it is RPO. A lot of it, there's some nice open field speed right here. This is against Notre Dame. A lot of it is off RPO. A lot of it, here's a nice reception for a good gain here as well. Gets out of some tackles a lot of times. Good open field speed. Here it is on another swing pass. The one thing, sometimes his jukes almost look a little out of control. He almost contorts his body too much sometimes. So you may want to get that under wraps a little bit. You see the RAS 8.9, so it's pretty good. Size grade, okay. Mainly pointing to the height as the problem there. Explosion grade, good. And of course, this is from the great Kent Lee Platt. Go follow him at MathBomb. Want to give him his credit and his due. And then look at the speed grade, right? The agility not recorded, at least that I could find. There may be a more up-to-date one, but the speed grade there with the splits and everything, that's pretty solid stuff, particularly for a guy at 220. 220 is not the hugest size at running back, but that's a pretty good. And again, here's the pros and cons. Effective out of shotgun, sneaky, athletic, and versatile. Quarterback attention towards his production. Age versus touches. Is he a 3-down player in the league? And then the shoulders, build, and maneuvering are all things that came to mind there. So those are some of the things that I saw with him. Again, broad-shouldered guy, good speed. You see a lot of guys kind of slide off of him in the open field as they try and tackle him because of his build. I like him. I just worry, and maybe it is a good fit because of the RPO stuff for the Bengals, right? There was just a lot of that, and it was kind of a lot of out of shotgun and just cut it outside. And you wonder about the effectiveness. Of course, defenses are going to respect Joe Burrow as well. Colleges were just hyper obsessed with everything Caleb Williams was doing, so the focus was just not really on the running backs at that point. Still, high yards per carry average, pretty good build, pretty good speed, and I just think there's a lot to like here in a guy I think who rose his stock after his time in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think that testing performance warrants a draft pick, probably. Maybe on like day 3, just because, I mean, older running backs, that's already kind of like not a death sentence, but it's just like there's only so much value for those guys. Even if the workload wasn't too extreme in college, going into the NFL at the age of 23 at a position where at 26, 27, you're just kind of ostracized at that point. The long-term impact is not great, but I think just in that short interim term, like there's a lot of value there as an athlete. Honestly, I looked up his mock draftable like spider chart, which shows like his percentiles in each of like the testing drills compared to his size and everything. And I was curious how he measured up to Doug Martin, and it's honestly pretty damn similar because you don't see a lot of guys who are sub 5'9", over 220, and that explosive. He's even faster than what Doug Martin tested in the 40. I think Doug Martin's like mid 4.5s, mid 4.4s. Being that dense, like that's pretty damn rare. Honestly, I think not even Rudy Johnson was that. Rudy Johnson was also a mid 4.5 guy at 5'10", 225, but Rudy Johnson was also very explosive, and so was Doug Martin. Doug Martin was a lot more quicker in terms of his agility. That's what made him just such an amazing athlete at his size. But I think having that explosion in speed with that power that comes with that type of build, there's value in that in a guy that can get you, a handful of carries a game to just keep your other running backs fresh. And I think for this point for the Bengals, you're not looking at a running back draft in the top 100 picks. You have much bigger needs to address. And honestly, if you're entering the draft with Chase Brown, presumably a free agent replacement for Joe Mixon, you're not really looking for a guy that's going to take over a giant workload. So I think Lloyd he kind of fits the bill for the types of running backs that they should be looking for. Not only a guy that, doesn't have to take on a huge workload because of draft status, but someone that can break off an explosive run or two and just keep the other guys fresh. And is kind of hard to bring down. Like all those attributes, I think the Bengals would be very much intrigued with. There's been a lot of hype about Jalen Wright, the kid from Louisville who like ran out of the building at Indianapolis. Just any type of speed that they can get combined with power to boot, I think is a plus for the Bengals, who again probably shouldn't invest more than a day 3 pick at the running back anyway. So yeah, well, like wait, when you're that old, at that point you're a day 3 pick probably guaranteed. But I don't think that's like too big of a problem for the Bengals if they can use his athleticism.
So here I'm looking at his stats. He's never had, and I noted, if you noticed, I said on the video there, 116 rushes last year for USC. That's the highest he had. None as a true freshman that I can see at South Carolina. Redshirt freshman year, 64 attempts, then 111 the following year, and 116 for the Trojans last year, and no more than 18 catches. So, I mean, really, with the age being up there, there's still not a lot of wear and tear. So I think that may be where teams look at that and say, okay, there's a give and take there. I will say this, when we talk about power with this kid, and granted, I haven't gone way deep into the film, but a lot of the clips, and you saw them in the ones that I just showed there, it's not, absolutely trucking or flooring a guy, right? It's getting into the open field, slightly outrunning guys. And then as they try and grab onto him, you see a lot of the, slide off the back. And I think it is due to power, yes, but really, again, I go back to the build of the broad shoulders. He just looks like a big rectangle up here sometimes, when he's running. And that may be where that kind of that juke that he does gets a little wild, because he's just got such those big broad shoulders. But I don't know that he's ever going to be alpha dog for an NFL team or the Bengals or anybody. I don't know that he's going to be alpha dog. I think this guy, though, much like how if you were to approach things even close to what the Baltimore Ravens do, where there's a nice committee and guys are effective, this is a guy I feel like that would fit in well maybe with them too, right? As a player that, kind of a one cut, get some power, have some pretty good speed, and go. So I think you're probably, like you said, maybe looking rounds 3. I don't think he'll last to round 5, but maybe rounds 3 through 5, somewhere in there. And that's maybe a guy that is a heavy rotator in your offense to start off, and you see where it goes. There's a little bit of, you could point to Zach Charbonnet a little bit as a kind of a guy that you feel like build-wise. Charbonnet was a little taller, I think, but kind of that same build and a little bit of speed, a little bit of power, and you like what you see on film.
Yeah, round 3. Like, would you take him in round 3, like knowing like what the Bengals have to do on top of like in the draft, or is that like where you just think like at the highest he goes?
I think that's the high. I think that's his high point. I think you're probably looking when that day 3 kicks off, and that flurry of picks to start the day. I think he's kind of right at that mix in round 4. That's what I think. I don't think he gets to round 5. I think you may get a team, that. And I don't know offhand, I don't have the draft order in front of me, but maybe there's a team at the end of round 3 that picks, they don't have as many picks as some of the other teams, or they're kind of like a Chiefs type team that, hey, we're just kind of playing with house money because of all the Super Bowls we've won recently. We need a running back. Let's just take him because we like what he does. Maybe there's a team that does that gets in there in round 3, but I think probably round 4 at this point is fair, and that's good value. And I think he can come in right away, again, because there's not a lot of wear and tear. He is older, so maybe there's a little bit of less of a learning curve in that way, and he can come in and help a team right away.
And that's the only benefit of, I mean, when you're that old entering the league, the expectation is that you are in your like athletic prime. And I think that's pretty clear based off of what he did at Indianapolis. Like 4.46 at 225 and 5'9". That's that actually ranks in the 95th percentile for speed score in terms of James Coburn's data. He's like 80-something percentile in explosion. So that's an elite athlete, even if it doesn't always, like you said, like it may not look quite like that on film, but when you're going up against like the best athletes in football, like that does end up mattering, especially with if that's your calling card, like, the more that you have, the better for sure. So yeah, like you also mentioned the Ravens and just how they kind of handle their running back room and just the way that they distribute the ball. Like I think the Bengals kind of saw towards the end of this past season when Joe Mixon and Chase Brown shared more of the workload, I think both of them kind of benefited from that. And I think the more that they kind of lean into that and go away from just having one bell cow, I think the better for the offense and better for the run game. So I think that's definitely the direction that they're going to end up going.
Yeah. And, we just talked about this being a play, I'm almost now going, man, this may be a guy the Ravens really like. And so, hey, I mean, we had we had Highsmith on the show before he entered the draft, and he left, and I'm like, man, that's a Steeler or Raven. I just, that tweener edge guy, and of course that's who he is, and he's great at what he does. So, but anyway, this would be a very intriguing pick and a guy that I think I could see the Bengals taking a look at, particularly with that explosive. So the one that surprised me on all those clips was that one. Granted, it was early in his career, but that South Carolina clip where he hurdles that player in the middle of the field. I knew he had the speed and everything, but that shows the explosion, really, to be able to launch yourself over that player and the athleticism. I really like that clip. I like a lot of the others, but MarShawn Lloyd, a guy to watch on draft weekend. We are